Well, hi there. I'm Diana Montford, the world's first transgender television journalist. Born male, became female, and to those of you who ask why we use classical music as the theme song for the show, because we want to lend dignity to the transgender movement. We could do cutesy music, we could do, 70s disco, we could do contemporary house music. No, we do classical music because we, the trans community, deserve classical music. Anyway, my guest is Mr. Stephen Palmer, who is a physician's assistant and an oral historian. Anyway, and he's going to tell us all about, the contemporary struggle in the HIV/AIDS community. What's going on? Is the disease as deadly as it was in the 80s? Quick answer, no, it's not, thank God. And we are going to talk about all sorts of interesting things. So here we are, Mr. Stephen Palmer. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
How are you?
I don't know where to look. Huh?
Well, look at me, of course, she said with no ego at all. But anyway, so now you tell us what you do and where you do it.
Okay. So I'm a physician assistant. I have been working at Columbia University since 1996, and when I graduated PA school in 1996, that was the first place I went to. So I've been in the same building for 23 years.
And what a great place to start, Columbia.
Yeah. Well, I did the HIV Scholars Program first for 2 years, and then when that was over, they were training people, MDs, PAs, nurse practitioners, to work with with HIV positive people.
And it was quite deadly in those days.
When I first started at Columbia, the cocktails had just begun a few months earlier. But it's still, the place looked like a MASH unit.
Come closer.
Come closer.
Yes, you oral historian, you were saying.
It was still like a MASH unit. I mean, there were people who had toxoplasmosis, cryptosporidiosis.
What is that? What are those
all
things?
of these opportunistic infections that people get once their immune systems become very depleted because HIV, and which are the things that ultimately killed them. So when I started, the cocktails were just coming in, but they were very, very difficult to take.
Why?
Right? Because there were a lot of pills. They hadn't been refined yet. You'd have to take, you always have to take a combination, so you're hitting in a number of different places to stop the HIV from taking over the T cell, the immune cell, and replicating. And some of the pills had to be taken 2 hours before or 2 hours after eating, and couldn't be taken with some of the other pills.
So everyone had to keep, no matter how sick they were, they had to keep it in mind. Okay, at 2 o'clock you take these, at 4 o'clock those, and you can't eat lemon meringue pie with these, and blah, blah, blah.
Truly, and there were, people would be nauseous. I remember a patient of mine saying in 1998, he was nauseous all the time. He said, if this is how I have to live, I'd just rather die. Right? Now, he held on long enough. As the years went by, the HIV medications became more and more refined, less pills, less times of day to take them, easier side effect profile. And so that was, that was an amazing change. To the current time where there are medications, now I'm not prescribing HIV medications anymore because what I'm doing is HIV prevention work. I'm doing, involved in vaccine research at Columbia University. But now there are pills with 4 medicines in them that somebody can take that have much fewer side effects, don't cause as many sort of physical changes like lipoatrophy and so on.
What's lipoatrophy?
A decrease in the fat in certain areas of the body. There was something that used to be called truncal obesity. I say that just as I'm pulling at my stomach, where this section of the body got enlarged and the extremities
don't
became...
most midlife men get a belly?
Yes.
No, I'm not saying you're midlife, no, but I'm saying I mean,
No,
how
but
can
a
they
real
tell
pulse.
that it's,
but
you know?
but the extremities became very thin. But that's gotten much better, right?
So people no longer, even if they, all right, what if they don't know they're HIV and they develop full-blown AIDS today? Can you save them from becoming very thin and Kaposi sarcoma and all that?
I mean, somebody may still present that way. I mean, that, you know, people are still getting infected and not knowing that they're HIV positive. But once they get to the point where they're found to be HIV positive, or they end up in the hospital because of an opportunistic infection, there's going to be the support services, hopefully, in place, certainly in New York, to corral those folks and to be able to get them into a clinic and get them on HIV medications and pull them back, right? So
Excuse me, I knew a trans woman who was with the Imperial Court. She was convinced she was going to die. And you know, dresses are very important. In the Imperial Court of New York, it's an organization of basically transvestites, but who want to, who want to show their beautiful gowns and all that, not unlike ball culture. If you've seen the show Pose, it's sort of like that. So anyway, she thought she was going to die. I won't tell you her name. She went bankrupt buying the most amazing couture gowns. Then came the cocktail. She didn't die.
Right.
Now she had this horrendous bill coming right at her.
Well, sure. I mean, one of the conversations...
Then she died. Eventually she died. But she died of anal cancer, not HIV.
There could have been a connection, but nonetheless, there was a whole situation in the late 90s where people were beginning to live, and it was called the Lazarus Syndrome.
Right,
and then the question was for these people to ask themselves, I thought I was going to die, now what do I do with my life? Right? And so that was a big deal. But, you know, we're at a place right now, I don't know if you've seen any of the ads where it says you equals you. It means undetectable equals untransmittable.
Well, that's great.
So if somebody is HIV positive and on medications and their viral loads, the amount of virus in their blood and their systems is undetectable, brought down to very, very low levels, they will not infect somebody else, right? Now consider what happens to the stigma of somebody being HIV positive, right? Knowing that that their relationships with other people it will not result in that person becoming
So does
infected.
that mean they're not ethically and legally bound to divulge that they have HIV?
If you're gonna be involved with somebody in a relationship, you're gonna want to talk about your life and
Rock Hudson's boyfriend sued the estate after Rock Hudson's death because Rock Hudson did not tell him that Rock Hudson, was HIV.
Those level of legalities, I'm not exactly sure of. But I mean, the point is that being undetectable is an amazing thing, right? Not just for your own health, but because you can be in a relationship with somebody else and not worry that you're going to infect them, all right? Now add to that we also have pre-exposure prophylaxis, right? PrEP, right?
What exactly is that?
It's one pill with 2 HIV medications in it that are used as part of a cocktail for people who are HIV positive. Cocktails have more medications in them, but the PrEP is a pill that people who are at risk can take every day, and it decreases the chance of them being infected by over 90%. I mean, you have to be consistent with it, right? So now you have a situation where there's a number of people who are taking PrEP, more and more people taking PrEP. HIV positive people starting medications, clinicians starting medications with folks living with HIV much sooner.
So
right?
they can still be productive members of society without, it used to be like cancer or something, they would live in bed until they stopped living and all that.
The point is that the sooner you get somebody on HIV medications, their viral load is going to become undetectable, and they will not be spreading the virus.
Will they then have a normal lifespan?
So I haven't
mean,
followed
they might
anybody
get,
out till 90.
yeah, they might get
There's
hit by a
other
car
things.
or something.
But yes, I mean, that's the expectation, right? People living long lives, not giving up their jobs, having families, getting married or partnered or having loves,
that's
and
amazing.
continuing on in life in a way that, was unimaginable.
Will cancer ever be done away with that way? If both are viruses, why can't they just use an offshoot of the AIDS medication for cancer?
There's immunotherapy that's being used in cancer as well, but this begins to get above my pay grade, talking about cancer, right?
Okay. Immunotherapy doesn't work against, for example, pancreatic cancer or something.
I don't know of all the forms of cancer it works.
Now, I never got HIV, thank God, because I don't really screw around that much. I just talk a good game. So, but, I mean, I was very paranoid in the 80s just about going to Greenwich Village because we didn't know how it was transmitted. I thought maybe it's in the air, Maybe, who knows? Maybe I go to a restaurant and the plate has it and who knows,
Those are really scary times, right? I lived in San Francisco in the Castro district in 1980 and 81.
Good heavens.
Nobody knew they had
nobody
HIV.
knew, yeah.
So
You were very young then, 20 and 21.
1980, I hitched there and arrived in San Francisco in June of 1980. I was just before my 19th birthday.
Wow.
So
didn't your parents say, "Where do you think you're going"? No.
I was a willful child.
I see. Okay.
And I ended up in the Castro, and I didn't really understand what the Castro was at the time. And I soon found out, and it was, a continuous party. There were people who were tricking all the time. Do you remember using the word
in other words, having pickups to sex with strange people. Well, strange,
And there would be people who had sex, like 1,000 partners a year,
Yeah.
But oddly enough, or interestingly enough, I was more interested in finding what was left of the hippie movement in the Haight-Ashbury.
Far
it was
out.
a bit more on kind of a spiritual trip.
Yeah, it's
to some
totally
level.
groovy.
And
you got to drop acid, man.
And I wasn't completely.
Hey, do you know
out.
Charlie Manson? Hey, I want you to meet a guy here now. Just kidding.
I know the song, and we are all together in one. Dude, he lived in the Haight-Ashbury.
I know that. I know that.
636
Yes.
Cole Street.
Whoa. Does that building still exist?
Sure.
I wonder if it has a plaque on it.
I have a great story about that. One of the Coquettes,
Yes.
Harlow.
I love that name.
I'm friends with Harlow, and I interviewed Harlow.
Not like Rachel Harlow, who's a different trans woman.
Harlow was part of the Coquettes
Yes.
drag troupe, hippie
They
drag
had like
troupe.
beards and they wore nuns' habits and
They
blew
didn't wear-
Christ
that
on the
was-
cross and other stuff.
That was the
Not the real Christ.
Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence.
Oh,
wore the
okay.
nuns'
You can't keep
habits.
these people straight, I'm telling you.
All right, very good. You can't keep them straight. But they were fueled
Come
by
closer,
LSD.
you oral historian. Yes.
But Harlow said to me that she was on Haight Street one day, and some girls came up to her and said, "Hey, you want to come over to our pad? We have a really groovy guy there, Charlie. We want you to meet Charlie." And she's like, "Okay, sure, I'll go with you." And they went into the house upstairs, and then got out and walked up a ladder that was at the side of the house going to the roof, and it was all rickety and everything. And she got to the top, and there were a bunch of people sitting around some guy who was playing guitar. And Harlow had this uncomfortable feeling. Part of it came from the idea that the hippie gal would feel so comfortable being on a rickety ladder. There was something dangerous about it that informed Harlow that something dangerous was going on. And she left. And they said, "Hey,
Harlow
where are you
left.
going?" Harlow, yeah, well, we want you to meet Charlie. And she said, "No, I'll be back. I'm going to go buy some beer or
Right,
something."
sure.
And she got out of there. So interesting. But San Francisco, 1980, 81. It's interesting because at the time I wasn't out, right? I would come up with anything, any term. I'm androgynous, I'm bisexual, anything
Didn't
to
we all
mean
do that?
anything to mean not gay,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And you know, certainly the hippie thing and the glam rock thing brought us to a place where we could talk about being bisexual or androgynous.
Elton John, circa 1973, said, "I'm bisexual." Now we know better. Kiki D is heartbroken still. And anyway,
oh Lord have mercy.
Yes.
That was a good song they did together.
Yes. Don't go breaking my balls. Yes.
But you know, in the 80s.
Yes, it was truly deadly, and it was truly dangerous.
I was scared to death. And in 1985, I'll tell you a going to get tested story. A colleague of mine, I worked in tropical tours. We made political tours to Nicaragua in solidarity with the Sandinista Revolution.
Yes. Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York, also went there and fought on the side of the Sandinistas. They're the good ones, right?
Well, yes. When I think of fighting, I don't want anybody to think I was picking up a gun. I was just, in solidarity. I was there for the 5th
No,
anniversary.
actually, Bill de Blasio did go, and I believe he was part of the revolution. I don't know.
That would have been 79.
Yeah, but, well, he's born the same year you are.
Is he really?
Yeah.
The Roberto Gurdian, who lives in Nicaragua again, went to get tested for HIV. And he said, "I'm Mary, please, don't be such a drama queen. Go get tested. I turned out negative, and I was much sluttier than you." And so I went to his doctor, and I got tested. This was 86.
And
then my therapist at the time, who was very well known in the gay community, Michael Chernoff, said, don't get tested. And that was sort of the official line from GMHC.
why? Oh, because
at the
the government would know and they would put you all in concentration camps or something.
Well, the other thing, I think the main thing was the idea that there was nothing that you could do about it, and it would just flip you out and hurt your immune system more, and it would be too traumatizing. And I took their advice.
You did not get tested.
I did not. I got tested. I didn't go for the results. And the doctor said to me, I called him and told him I wasn't coming for the results. Right. He said, I really think you ought to come. I think it's important for people to know. And I said, well, I've really decided not to. And he said, when I look down the list of people here, I see that, there are a lot of people who are negative. I wonder if, in retrospect, he wasn't saying you're one of those names. But you could not do that at that point. You could not give results over the phone.
Can you now?
Yes.
Okay.
And so at the time, I decided against it. In 1989, I was eating a slice of pizza at Polito's Pizza Parlor in Astoria on Broadway. And I was reading the Daily News. And it said, GMHC now says that people should get tested for HIV because there's something you can do about it. There's AZT and so on. And I just remember being like, oh my God, that's me. And I remember being angry at GMHC for betraying my denial.
Because now you could do something and probably should do something.
It was marching orders, essentially.
Yeah.
So I took the number 7 train to the Department of Health in Junction Boulevard in Corona. And they took my blood. There was a whole, how would you react if you found out you were positive, and all of these questions. And they made a return appointment for me.
Excuse me.
That's
well, now, if you'd said, "Oh, I would go crazy," would they not tell you were positive? Would that be ethical?
No. The thing is that they would understand the levels of support that one would need in order to do it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But they wrote my name down in a pencil in a ledger with a number next to it, and I had to come back in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I came back with my cousin Ted, who was very supportive, straight guy, but really lovely. So hang out. So we're in there, and I'm sitting in the waiting room like, oh my God.
Desperately
praying. And I look up, and there is a public service announcement on the wall there. And what there's 2 pairs of feet under under covers. And on top it says bang, and below it says you're dead. That was the public service announcement then.
Well,
bang,
yes.
you're dead.
But it was true.
It was double entendre. But
Yes.
And so I said, Ted, what do you think's going to happen? And he said, that. And it was hysterical. And so I started laughing. He helped me.
So what happened?
So I went into the room, and the woman, it was a very well-coiffed, middle-aged
Wasn't Matilda
African-American woman.
Grimm? Oh, no.
And she puts her finger at the top of the page, and she starts going down, and she stops, and then she goes more. I'm like, oh my God, she saw that I was positive, and she doesn't know how to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And then she looked up and she said, you're negative. I squeezed the pumpkin out of that woman.
Yeah, sure.
And I had trouble sleeping for about 2 nights because I felt like this energy just flying through me that had just been on hold for that whole time.
For many years, actually.
For many years. So being in the field of HIV...
Let's discuss, all right. Now, I'm going to be really crude here. Ass fuckers get AIDS, cocksuckers don't. Am I right?
Ass fuckers get AIDS.
If you take it.
Okay, so receptive partners.
Right.
If a penis goes in your hiney.
Yes.
Or
but if you
vagina,
suck cock, you're not going to get too hurt.
I mean, it would be anecdotal at best, but, you know.
But use a condom anyway. Advice from mother. But if you are receptive in anal intercourse, let's be classy here, and don't use any protection, and your person has HIV, you're going to get it, right? Unless you take that PrEP stuff.
Well, I mean, the percent chance of getting it isn't 100%. It doesn't mean that you're going to. Is it
like getting pregnant? It's like Russian roulette. You might get pregnant, you might not, but why take the chance?
I forget the statistics around this, but well, I'll run with Russian roulette. I mean, the thing is that it's the sort of conversations that you engage with people when you're going to have sex with them. Now, a lot of the guys are using Grindr or
which is very dangerous. It's a computer app, and people you don't even know. I mean, you know.
Well, I suppose there could be a looking for Mr. Goodbar or cruising aspect to it, but all the people I know who use it have never had anything weird happen, and people disclose on it what their status is.
I see. Oh, well, that's. But right. People lie.
People lie every now and then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good reason if you are out there and you're worried about some people lying. Hopefully, the majority of people don't lie. You're on PrEP, right? You're taking care of yourself. Hopefully, the vast majority of people out there who are positive know it and are on medications or are
and anyone who's on PrEP cannot get it? Is that it?
The number, it prevents like over 90 some odd %.
So they can bear back with impunity?
I don't like the word impunity. I mean, there are people who have a lot more sex than other people and are on PrEP and are not using condoms and are not becoming infected. Right?
Well,
there's very few cases of that. I think 3 or.
If you live out in a small town in the U.S. and you are gay man, and you want to have sex, and you're afraid you'll get a disease, and there's no place to go to get all this nice PrEP stuff and all this, what do you do? And fast, because we have like no time.
Oh my God. What do you do if you're out in the middle of nowhere?
Right. And you're like from a very fundamentalist Christian family, and you don't want anyone to know.
I mean,
jerk off. That's what you do.
Well, I think the thing that you would do is you would Google centers in the closest in nearby cities or clinics that would best define.
Can you treat minors without parental permission?
Yes.
If a 13-year-old boy comes to you and says, "I'm having sex, I'm gay, can you give me PrEP?" I need your parents' consent.
I haven't been in that position before of a 13-year-old coming to me for that. I do know that there is rolling out PrEP education about HIV and PrEP in high school. to people who are at risk. And
But
as
that's a
far
stigma in and of itself, you know.
As far as I know, there isn't.
Imagine
one
you're
doesn't need
straight
your
and
mom's permission.
some teacher says, you know, we're giving away PrEP. Oh no, she thinks I'm gay. You know what I mean?
Well, sure. There's always that potential.
Just
right?
because I'm a theater queen, she thinks I'm gay.
Let me just say one last thing also.
Yes.
I mean, because you were asking me earlier before we started about some of the prevention things that we're doing at Columbia University.
Right.
So the Columbia Research Unit, columbiaresearchunit.org, has a number of studies, both vaccine studies and antibody studies. Vaccine studies, right? Giving somebody a vaccine so that the immune system actively makes antibodies.
But is that working?
We're not
because
there.
years ago,
We're
they
not-
gave people a vaccine and they all got HIV.
No.
Like 20 years ago.
No.
Well,
Wait. No. So you can't get HIV from a vaccine, all right? And there are also antibody studies, right? That's passive immunity. That's infusion of antibodies into people that we're testing right now to see if they can prevent people from
are you
becoming.
looking for volunteers?
We're looking for volunteers.
Well, how do they get hold of you?
So call 212-305-2201 or go to columbiaresearchunit.org, and we will be in touch with you. We have we have a great staff. We're looking for MSM, trans folks,
What's MSM?
people, men who have sex with men,
Oh, okay.
gay guys.
We used to call that faggots. Okay.
But I mean, for the new young people, queer or whoever you are, we are an open environment.
But play safely, for God's sake. You know what? Go to the fucking drugstore, buy a box of condoms, and use them. And then get PrEP and go to these nice people who will help you. But just buy a box of condoms. You can get them for free at a hospital, can't you?
Sure.
Any hospital.
If you come to our waiting room at Columbia University,
if you live in
you will
Muskogee,
get
can you go to the hospital and get a
condoms.
condom?
Yeah, I hope so. I
If
don't
not,
know.
go to the mini mall and go to the drugstore, okay? And lie to the drug and say, oh, I got me a date with a hot gal. Yes, sir, Bob. Anyway, my guest has been Mr. Stephen Palmer, who is, yes, an oral historian, and a PA, physician's assistant. There you go.
Yeah.
And he's an AIDS expert, and he never got AIDS, right?
I don't have HIV.
No, neither do I, thank God. I'm so glad I went to Catholic school and those nuns made me frigid. Thank you, God. Anyway, getting raped by a priest didn't help, but Anyway, my guest has been Mr. Stephen Palmer. Contact Columbia. Give the thing one more time.
columbiaresearchunit.org, and you can call 212-305-2201.
I'm Diana Montford. This has been the Diana Montford Show. Even if no one else loves you, I love you. See you next time. Bye. Mwah.